and not just because I'm in the middle of a love affair with Waterstones that hopefully will never end. Hello guys, so I'm in an unusual location, but you should recognise this wallpaper, so those who are very observant should know where I am right now. And on a Wednesday. I mean, I could kid on that's unusual, but I've only been keeping the Monday-Friday schedule for 2 weeks, and I posted this week's Monday video last Friday, 2 hours after Friday's video. Not completely sure how I managed that, but dates is the answer, and not being very observant. Still counts! But back to the point, I'm here to talk about Waterstones Children's Book Prize 2015 Teen Shortlist. And they're actually announcing it the day after I post this video, but I thought it'd be funner to talk about the teen books before they announce the overall prize. Just to clarify, it's an overall prize, so it includes the categories from children, pictures and teen. So none of these books could win, but I've got to say I have a feeling it probably will be a teen book this year. I mean, there's a lot of really good books in the teen prize. I noticed when they announced the shortlist that I'd actually read a lot of the books, so I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna get the other books and I'm gonna read them all and tell you who I think out of the teen category is the best anyway, and I don't know, elaborate what they have in common and stuff. I thought it'd be fun to do a video on the Waterstones Children's Book Prize, mainly cause I'm almost always by the winner. I didn't last year, but it didn't really appeal to me, and even though I read younger children's books, youth tops, I don't know, I picked it up a few times, but then I just put it down because it never fully called to me. And after reading this book, I'm going to trust my gut. That's a bit of a spoiler on my opinion of this book. But I don't want to talk about this book first, because that's a negative and you should always start with a positive. So instead, let's talk about the book that's had the most hype, which is Half Bad by Sally Green. I have 2 copies of this book before I read it, mainly for the design, so if there's a best book design award, this book should get it, because these 2 books are awesomely designed. The pattern on this book, like, the only reason I got the paperback because I could not resist this. I'm like, yeah, I pre-ordered the limited edition, but I need this. And this is why I have a book buying problem, because design. I love books and art. So the actual content of the book is overhyped. To be honest, I feel like of all the books in this is the one that I feel shouldn't win. I mean, one, it's been overhyped, and I feel, well, obviously being an allegory for years, Half Bad just is okay. It was overhyped, and I feel like it's, in terms of like book prizes being used to make people read and consider books that maybe they wouldn't have read otherwise, I feel that's why Half Bad shouldn't win. In terms of actual, if all these books were on the same pegging of who had the most hype and who had the most publicity, I still wouldn't say Half Bad should win. Because while it's good and this is an interesting world and we have hints of LGBT fiction in it, it's just hints, so it's not enough to be outstanding, and it's not the first YA book to have this same setup, though I think it might be the first with a male main character, but I've definitely had one with a very similar setup, but aliens. So Half Bad, while being good and I enjoyed the book, the sequel's better, for one thing, and technically the sequel could be nominated for next year. I don't know what the years are. I know it's sort of meant to be new writers, so if you've got 3 published books as the maximum or something, so could count. Second book on the list that I want to talk about is Dead Ends, and I want to talk about a pattern in these books. There's a pattern of disability. Different types of disability each one, but still you can see the pattern, and it's interesting having read all these books to kind of think about the similarities, and there's definitely a few kind of similarities, and I feel like there's always kind of maybe a slight outcast vibe with a lot of these books. So Dead End by Erin Lang, and I have met this author, and we can have a contest about Which author has the nicest handwriting, signature? It's not much of a signature, you can't make it out, but you know, she's learned to be quick. And Sally Green, I mean, that's clearly an S, and she's just scribbled an interpretation of green. So who has the nicest handwriting? I don't know, and I don't have the other authors' signatures to compare. Imagine that was a competition. Someone should set that up as a joke. I don't feel like I've got enough signatures to do it. I mean, I've got some since Edinburgh Book Festival last year, but still not enough. But maybe. Back to the point instead of nonsense. One of the main characters is a boy with Down syndrome. It's the point of view of a buoy, and Appletouch has buoying in it. That's the link. Appletouch buoying. Half Bad has buoying in it, but it's severe. I mean, actually both Appletouch with buoying could be considered severe. It could get very confusing if I actually went through all these books, and every similarity would make a very long video. And this video is getting long, I can feel it in my bones. Point. So Dead Ends is about a boy, basically gets in trouble, so the only way to avoid being expelled, he has to hang out with this boy with Down syndrome, and they don't have fathers. And off the journey they go. Daddy issues! That's another thing they have in common. That's the thing this book has in common with Half Bad. I don't know, I really like this book, but it's kind of, I don't know, the whole buoying narrative I feel doesn't really work. And I feel like, I know it's meant to be the whole buoys are people too, and this is why someone might do this and they wouldn't consider themselves buoying. And while it's interesting, I don't know, I feel like, and it's a good portrayal of a disabled person. When I say disabled, I just mean that kind of carry that we come under. Life can suck sometimes, and it sucks from your birth. That's how I think of disability. It just means you have something makes life a little bit more of a challenge than other people, especially from a young age, if you had it. I don't know, I'm not going to discuss what disability is, but I count all these, if I say someone's got a disability, it's because I count as a disability. My personal self, my own experience of physical and mental, like pain disorder disabilities. Point. And it's a good portray, and that's always nice to see. And he's an actual character. It's been a while since I read this, and I don't have a UV on it, so I liked it, but I didn't gush over it. Actually, I think this is Erin Lang's second nomination in the Waterstones book, because Buttered was nominated as well. Once. I think it was last year. And on to our next book that features sort of daddy issues. Sort of, not really. Absentee Fathers is what this features. Absentee Fathers is in 3 of the books. Half Bad, Dead Ends, and this one. I like this book. This is The Strange and Beautiful Soul of Avalanche by Leslie Watson. Once again, this is a book that's actually had a lot of hype. Not as much as Half Bad had in the UK, I don't know. This is an American book though, so it's slightly different playing fields. I think this was a Waterstones Book Hub Book of the Month though. Not sure. I basically gauge my whole reading patterns off Waterstones. Suggest. Not at all, but whoever runs Waterstones knows what they're talking about. They do pick good books. I like this book and I enjoyed it, but I don't know, I don't feel like it had a magic sparkle. Also, it reads like an adult book. It's more adult than a YA book. Like, if I read this and I was told to put it in a category of age, I would say this is an adult book before I said it was a YA book. So it's definitely mature YA. So basically this is a girl who's born with feathers, but it's also very much about the 2 women who raised her as well, her grandmother and mother, and their stories when they were growing up. We sat in France and end up in Zao. Interesting, and it's kind of whimsical and has mature themes. I liked it, but like I said, it didn't have that spark for me. But the cover's pretty, and I would recommend it if you like kind of, I want to say whimsical. The Apple Tart of Hope by Sarah Moore Fitzgerald is the book I would consider the worst in this bunch. Not because it's a bad book, I mean I did just give it 5 out of stars and I just read it, but because it's kind of, so what? Half Bad and Dead Ends kind of have that kind of vibe, And I guess maybe it's just because this is the newest one, it's the one I'm going to say is the worst. Maybe it's not really the worst, it's probably just same level as the other ones. I don't know, it's just I didn't feel anything from this book. Consider this book the worst because it has suicide aspects to it. We also have disabled one of the main characters' brother, Stevie, in his wheelchair. I don't feel anything for this book is kind of my aspects. This book didn't make me think. Like with Half Bad, I questioned aspects of it. It was a book that engaged me on some level. I think maybe it's just getting the most harshness because it's the one I read and it's the one that I wouldn't have picked up if I didn't decide, you know, I'm going to read them all and then I'm going to talk about them all for this video idea. I saw this book on NetGuy and I read the description like, no, and put it down. I looked at it a few times and it was just, no. Well, except for the suicide part, it reads more like a teen drama that's kind of cheap. Basically, a girl goes away for a while. She comes home early because her best friend has went missing. And that's the premise. And I didn't like the ending. It just seems very bland. Like, I don't think I will be able to tell you what this book was about in a year's time. I mean, Dead Ends, I haven't read that book since August. And I still have a rough idea what happened and how the issue was just solved and the emotional conflict. The same with like Smart and Only Ever Yours. I'd be really surprised if this wins. And if it does win, I'll be like, that's wrong, and walk away. I get why it was nominated and it is a well written book. It's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's no spat about it. And that's a very personal thing for me, but that's just the way I feel. And I feel like I'm being more harsh on it because it's the book that I last read out of this disorder and it was the book that I would never have picked up otherwise. I mean, it just sounds like a weird, typical contemporary. And while I'm gonna say I'm more fantasy chick, but I like contemporary, I read contemporary, I like stuff. And there's an aspect of mystery because what's going on with these characters, even if it's more just a character study mystery. I guess if you like the description, read it, but there's nothing about this book that speaks to me. So now that we've had the worst, it's time for the best. These are my two favourites of this lot, and the varying reasons. The books that I would want you to read, everyone to read, but they're very different, but they're both really good. And they are Smart by Kim Slater, A Mysterious Crime, A Different Detective. I said the subtitle after the writer, that's who I am. And Only Ever Yours by Louise O'Neill. And I think I should just explain what these books are about. I'm gonna go for the easier one. Smart is a crime mystery book about a boy with learning disabilities who doesn't quite fit in with his class. On talks of Half Bad, where there should be competitions for the best cover, this one has a really good one, and I like this because it's a cover that incorporates with the story. Basically, a dead body is found, and nobody really cares about it because it's a homeless person, but Kian decides to try and solve this murder. I've reviewed this one. If I have reviewers of the books, I will link them down below. I really love this book because it made me nostalgic for my own childhood, and that sounds weird. Yeah, I was solving crimes as a kid. There was always finding bodies in the local. It's a very realistic portrayal of a kid like with disabilities. I don't know, having a support teacher like of your own is just remind me of my childhood, and that's a bit weird, but I really enjoyed it. And it's a funny book, and it's really well done, and it deals with issues like homelessness, crime. I really like this book because I saw myself in the main character, I guess. I guess we share a lot of characteristics, and I guess that makes us biased. But once again, this is why diversity in books is important, and I feel this is the best one at that. I mean, it's actually the best book featuring a disabled character, especially mine, that I read ever. Though I do wish it wouldn't follow the shape of having the disability unnamed. Like, just say what it is. Just say. Why can't anyone just admit someone got a specific disorder? Only ever yours, which shares with the strange and beautiful soul of Avid and Lavender by having very awkward scenes. Your view. It was a very hard review to write because this was a very hard book to read. I didn't know what to say, how to display this. It's a dystopia, but it deals with a lot of issues that we have right now, like body image and media, the way media can affect young people, young girls, obviously, especially because that's what this book's dealing with. This is basically a dystopia where women apparently can't give birth to girls, so they're all made in laboratories and they're dehumanized. Their names ain't even proper nouns, and you know, like, that's so dehumanizing. It's very well written, and these girls are slowly created to be companions or sex objects or nuns, all for the benefit of men. It's scary and it's uncomfortable. It was a book that's really stuck with me and I can't describe it. I'm getting really teary about this book. I don't know. In terms of all the books, I feel like this one's the most important to read, so maybe that's why it should win. But I still really like Smart and feel like it's also an interesting and it's a step foot in the right direction when it comes to books about disability and having them as main characters. Well, this is a very important feminist book. God's sake, just read this book. It will make you uncomfortable, but because it affects today so well, and I wouldn't be surprised if people do actually study this book in detail in English classes in the future. Yeah, Lewis O'Neill, you are awesome. It has a beautiful friendship in it, but also deals with the horrible, negative ways that girls and women can be in society, forced against each other instead of with each other, and that's a real issue we have. This is a long video. I'm getting all emotional, but that's a sign of a good book. If a book can make you emotional about it, even after you finish reading it, it's probably a sign that it's a keeper. And I feel like I said, I could write an essay on this and I could do a discussion. I should have done a discussion right after I read it, but it was just so hard and uncomfortable to think about this book that every time I went to write the review, I would just gush about it and cringe as well. And it made me feel things, important things. Read it. I guess in comparison, in these two books that I really like, Smart is the book you should tell people to read. Only Ever Yours is the book you should throw at people to read. So guys, that's what I personally think about the Waterstones Teen Shortlist Book Prize thing. So these are all the nominated books. Who do you think will win? And I mean, what book do you think is the best out of the teen and just the whole general children's book? Also, what's your favourite book to ever won the whole Waterstones Book Prize ever? And I probably know what it is for most of you, if you're actually aware that it won this prize, because it's a BookTube favourite. I will see you on Friday. Bye. This is my goals for 2015, and I have